So I've got to put my quick oats together tonight, and I thought I'll just do a check-in to see if everybody's still going absolute batshit crazy. Because I actually did some looking into a couple of things, just lightly, and actually found out quite a bit. So let's give it a minute and see if anybody pops in. So I'm just making my quick oats for tomorrow. That's all I'm doing. And I wanted to give it a minute to see if anybody pops in so that we can discuss this further. Because I think a lot of people have lost their ever-loving minds. Hi, Daniel. How you doing? What do you think about what's been going on today and how apparently Upchurch is like the father of the entire world and has to take the blame for all bad decisions that people make. I thought it was hilarious. So I actually did some looking into this today, because I know that Boozy has had a hellaciously wild life and career, and has been in trouble a lot, and was even like brought up on murder charges that he beat, and then had the whole State Farm Arena debacle. Yeah, those people can skip rocks. So I actually looked into it because I'm trying to make sense of these people that somehow think Ryan's responsible, because actually it was like a couple years ago that Boozy said anything about this. It was during, I think, an interview with Vlad TV or something like that. And, he said a whole bunch of stuff in that interview that is just completely crazy. Boozy has got quite the crazy career. Boozy has said lots of stuff over the years that nobody else would have said, and he does it for the limelight, the attention, and the media. And I think, I put a little bit of syrup in mine just for a little bit of maple flavor, and I think he says it because he's just stupid. Yeah, Boozy is like every other rapper through the years that has said stupid shit to get attention and to get record deals, to look like a badass, to, live that life. So, his people know he be real, stupid. It's absolute stupidity. So, it turns out that it was a couple years ago that he had this interview where he said this. So, a couple years, y'all are mad at Ryan Upchurch about something that happened a couple years ago that should have been taken care of. And I'm sorry, but if Dan was sitting on this for up to a year, just waiting to pounce on Upchurch, and he withheld this information, then did he not do more damage to the kids if law enforcement had never looked into it? He knew about it, and he was like laying in wait to use this at just the moment to get him the best personal, bounce back on it. So is Dan not a giant piece of shit too? If we're using that logic, is Dan not a giant piece of shit too? So let's look at Boozy. Boozy didn't get off parole until like 2018. Boozy has been monitored. Yogurt. Boozy has been monitored by authorities for the largest chunk of his life. He is kept probably on a very close surveillance watch because he's absolutely batshit crazy, and we can all agree on that. Do I like the man? No. Am I defending the man? Absolutely not. Would I have put him on a rap album of mine? No, but it's not my album. I didn't make it. I don't get to tell Ryan what to do. And if Ryan really thought that musically this man was going to bring something to his album, then that's his right as an artist to bring people on that he believes are artists that are going to bring something to his music. At the end of the day, I don't pay for his music to be produced, so it ain't my business. But Boosie didn't get off parole until like 2018. Boozy was like taken in for murder, but he beat those charges, and all that State Farm arena crap that happened. But he didn't get off parole until 2018. This man has been monitored. Big time monitored. He is probably kept on a minimum level of surveillance with law enforcement at all times because it's just batshit crazy. So for the people out here thinking that that Heavy Duty Country dropped massive new information that law enforcement needs to go and investigate because they haven't, really? You're stupid. Okay, let me preface this by saying I'm a retired parole officer who supervised murders and sex offenders. So I know a little bit about how this works. So he's popular in the hip-hop community, and he plays the same game that all of those in that hip-hop community play. I'm a badass, look what I can do, and then proceeds to threaten people's lives and play this little game where he talks about outlandish things, horrible things, and plays this big bad image persona and all this crap. But the thing is he didn't get off supervision until 2018. So we know he was very heavily monitored up through 2018. And then he had that whole issue, that State Farm issue, and then there was some stuff that happened last October, additionally, to where he's been back in the limelight. So you can't tell me, because I looked and I saw magazine articles, website articles about what he said, so you can't tell me that it was not published and put out there when it occurred. I think it was like a couple years ago. So the information's been out there. Heavy Duty Country did not uncover anything. He just found something that he knew would help create a seed of doubt, sway people into his line of thinking. But the thing is, if you think Ryan's responsible for what happened to those kids because nobody knew about this until now, then if Heavy Duty sat on that information until it was going to personally benefit him to release it, did he not perpetuate what the kids were living in? Shouldn't you also be mad at him? The logic, the irrational way of thinking, the cognition that is so stupid in all this is just blowing my mind. So let's get it straight. He was on supervision until 2018. He didn't get off supervision until 2018. So he was heavily monitored until then. And I'm sure they keep an eye on him even after that because the man can't stay out of trouble. So even when he made this statement, it was blasted in media everywhere. I'm sure it was investigated. I'm sure law enforcement looked into it. And had there been any validity, I'm sure he would have had new charges because he's no stranger to mugshots at all. So there probably was just not any validity, or there wasn't anything that they had, that law enforcement had as proof, as the verification that they could open an investigation and proceed. Or if they opened an investigation and they didn't find anything that they could concretely say he had done this. It could have just been him blowing smoke, because Lord knows if you look at any of the interviews he done, the man says shit that shouldn't be said by anybody. It's just, the man is crazy. So I can look at the timeline and go, okay, he was heavily supervised till 2018 because he was on supervision. And then at the moment he got off supervision, he started doing all these interviews, and he was in the limelight because he was doing stupid stuff and saying stupid stuff immediately. He's been watched. I'm sure it's been checked into. I'm sure there's no validity to it. Huh, Denise? And for me to see young people sit here and not understand, he was on parole, he's been supervised, he's only had a couple years where he's not been supervised, but even then he's been back and forth with law enforcement and under investigation for other issues. Do not think, as much as that interview was blasted, what he said, do not think if there was anything true to it, that he would also have had new charges about that. But y'all don't think like that. The first thing you all think is, who do I blame? And somehow it landed on Ryan. Which is crazy. Which is absolutely crazy. Now, if I were Ryan, would I have had this man on my record? No. But I'm not Ryan. Ryan, for whatever reason, he wanted his musicality represented on that song. Does that make me happy? No, I don't care for Boosie. I don't like people that live in that world where they glorify horrible things. But I also don't pay for Ryan's music to be produced, therefore I don't have any say-so in it. Do I think that Ryan will probably think a little bit more about bringing people that, to do features in from this day forward? Yeah, I think he probably will, especially since he's realized that some of his fan base doesn't have enough brains to wad a shotgun. So he's going to have to start making some different decisions because his fan base is apparently inept. But the blame game that I saw this morning was stupid. Because heavy duty, just by looking up old interviews of Boozy, old things that Boozy had said, that Ron probably didn't know, hadn't seen the interview, wasn't paying attention, didn't care to know. Had I not went looking for the information, I wouldn't have found it. So I wouldn't have known. So you can't just say, well, everybody knows that. No. Take that off the table. Not everybody knows that. And then everybody's saying, well, Boozy said it, therefore it's admission of guilt. No, that's not how that works. Boozy said it, but it would have to go into a court of law and be proven. And he could say, I was just blowing smoke. I was just being a dumbass. I was just saying stuff to shock people. I just wanted people to tune in and be like, what? And get numbers up. And that may be what he was doing. Or he may be an absolute shit father who did horrible things to his children and deserves to probably rot under a prison cell. I don't know. But I can guarantee you from the level of limelight this man has had, from being on supervision, being a star, being on supervision, not getting off paper until 2018, and then still being investigations and being in issues consistently, I guarantee it was looked in on. And I guarantee had there been validity, he would have had those charges amongst all the others that he's had slapped on him over the last few years. So for you all to go absolutely crazy, hi Gypsy, for you all to go absolutely crazy and want to say that Ron is supporting abuse and pedophilia by doing a featurette of this man, because all I know is that he gave him a little feature in that song, and Boozy certainly did not say anything about any of those things during the song. It was Ryan's song that he controlled the production of and asked Boozy to do a featurette in. Ryan supporting his musicality is not supporting anything that he may have said, whether he knew he said it or not. So that's crazy. But for y'all to say, well, Boozy said it, therefore it's true. No, it's not how that works. Boozy can say anything he wants, but it has to be proven in a court of law before he can be convicted of it. And there's no conviction for anything that he said. Is it horrible? Is what he said atrocious? Is it distasteful to anyone that has a brain? Yeah. It's horrible. But the only person responsible for that is Boozy. We have to hold the appropriate people responsible. And by bringing him on and letting his music talent shine, there was no discussion of BLM and there was no discussion of his children. Ryan did not boost that, believe in that, lend credence to that. No, and Ryan may not have even known. I mean, my God, I had to go look for it. I didn't know. So, be careful. Do I think this Boozy guy is a good human being? I know. No, I don't. I don't think he's a very good person. And I hope that everything was investigated. I've said several times on several different threads, I will put this to rest if you will tell me the approximate time that this was supposed to have happened, where they were living, state and city at that time, and get me the names so that I can report this. I will call and report this so that they tell me if it's been investigated or they need to look into it. I'll do it. I'll get laughed at by law enforcement because I know they've probably looked into it, but I will do that to calm everyone's nerves. Not one person offered me any information. None. Which tells me you all really just want to whine about it and put the fault wherever you feel comfortable putting it, not where it should be, and not follow through as you should follow through if you really cared about the kids. So, it's just crazy, and people were like, well, you were all over the place this morning. I was pissed 10 ways to Sunday because I was seeing such stupidity. Do you know why our world is falling apart? Because there's no personal accountability, there's no personal responsibility. We want to just blame everyone for everything. You pawn that off over there, handle that over there. If you like somebody, they get a pass, then you go and attack someone else. But I'm here to tell you, if you were upset to think that Upchurch was somehow responsible for what these kids were going through, or that he was approving of what these kids may have been put through by their father by having Boozy on his record, then you should also be mad at Heavy Duty Country, because if you think it hadn't been investigated and those kids were still in harm's way, then Heavy Duty Country found this information, held on to it until it personally benefited him to release it, and then told you. So if your logic holds, then he withheld information and left those kids in a horrible position until it benefited him to tell other people, so he may have perpetuated that as well. Now, for most people, you go, that doesn't really hold water, because when the man did the interview, it went everywhere, all over the internet, all over magazines, and he had been actively on supervision and was still under investigation for new charges, and I'm sure law enforcement picked that up and probably cleared that scenario as well. I'm sure they did too. But for you people that want to absolutely jump a cliff when you see things like this, and just make these horrible leaps of faith that prove retarded people can access the internet, then I have to apply your flawed logic and show you how flawed it is and how much more flawed it is, because you're not even holding correct people accountable if that's your logic. So I was irritated this morning. I was absolutely irritated this morning because we just attack everybody else and make problems everybody else's problem. If you were mad about what happened to Boozy's children, you should have sought Boozy out and left him a message or reported it to law enforcement. Attacking anyone else is stupid, because no one else was in charge of that. It was Boozy. And if you're mad that Ryan had him on as the featured artist, then just don't support Ryan's music anymore. There's no need to try to say that Ryan is in effect responsible for child abuse and the facilitation of sexual abuse to a minor. Stupid. You're going to get you back in trouble saying shit like that. And for most of you people going, you don't know anything. Well, you were in a highly emotional state, and I was trying to calm you down and rationally go, let's not logical. Because I used to supervise murders, and I used to supervise sex offenders, and I understand the legal components in the justice system, and I understand how this works. And nothing you all were jumping to made sense. Nothing. So it's frustrating for me to see people make such rash judgment calls with no information, just running on fumes. And I'm like, wow, there's no wonder the world is falling apart. Yeah, people flipped on church because they made a response video, and they're like, you didn't show that home video. You got very, very specific issues. Listen. Do we want to sit there and watch Dan do his fake laugh and scripted man behavior again? I didn't. So he only responded to what he felt he needed to respond to. What you infer from that is on you. Because nobody can crawl inside Ryan's brain and say, I know exactly why he did that. You know. And I'm just like, you people need something else to do. I know quarantine and all this shit's been hard, but y'all need something else to do. Pick up a goddamn hobby or something. Or start reading about your legal system in this country and understand how it works, so that when you want to then convict people in public opinion, you understand how flawed your logic is and how irrational you sound. It's frustrating, but especially for someone that used to have a badge and deal with this. It's frustrating to see people just run amok. People are quick to point fingers because, and that's the thing, they didn't want justice. They didn't want justice. They didn't want to put those kids first. If they wanted justice, they wanted to put those kids first. If they truly had a question mark above the scenario, saying were these claims investigated, were these kids checked into and made safe, then they would have gone immediately to law enforcement and been like, I saw this on the internet and I'm so concerned about these kids. What's this taken care of? What's this investigated? Are these kids safe? Please look into this. Nobody did that. I even asked for the information and said, I'll call and get laughed at by law enforcement. And I'll video me calling and telling them. to prove to you that it's been covered. A man that was on parole for 8 years, just got off parole, has had new charges, has been in the limelight, has been in the scope of investigation a lot since he got off supervision, which, stupid. Are you stupid, Boozy? Yeah, you're stupid. It's been looked into. He is not off anybody's radar. He is very, very much still a prominent figure, I guarantee. But, you know, if you had cared, if that had been your concern, if your concern had really been such an honorable concern for the children, you know, that would have been what you would have done. Contacted law enforcement and made sure that this had been investigated. Or provided me the information so I could have done it. But you didn't do that. You just wanted to convict Ryan Upchurch. Even though he had nothing to do with the interview, what was said, Boozy's family life, children. Probably didn't even know the interview existed or what Boozy had said. Probably doesn't know as much as I know about Boozy and his police years. You just wanted to lay blame to feel better. But if it hadn't been looked into, and you were in fear of those children, and those kids had potentially still been in harm's way, still being abused, then why aren't you mad at Heavy Duty Country for finding that information out and sitting on it, withholding it, until it benefited him personally to say something about it? Because that means if you feel that those kids are still being abused and potentially in a bad situation, that they were kept in that bad situation longer than necessary because he sat on the information. Why aren't you mad at him? You're picking and choosing where your energy goes because you're mad. And you're wanting to fling it at who you think is responsible. But the thing is 9 times out of 10, who we think or feel is responsible is not legally who is responsible. It's just where we want to, stick our anger quickly to feel better. And there needs to be a much better thought process and a much better cognition, I guess, for these younger generations. This younger generation is scaring the hell out of me. Scaring the hell out of me. And then to be 17, 18, 19 years old and to come at somebody that's 43 that worked for over a decade in corrections, specifically with murderers and sex offenders, and then worked with children that had trauma backgrounds, to come at me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm just trying to give him a break. No, I'm trying to slow you down to understand legally how this works so that you don't go on the internet and defame someone and get your ass in a sling. I'm really trying to help you. But people don't want to be held accountable. They don't want to be made aware. They don't want to be responsible. They just want to be right. And Dan was not right to make that video. In no way is Upchurch responsible for any contract he chose to go into. I think Upchurch was trying to be nice and kind of get him a cheap break to see if he could make music. And it was nice of him to, get him, like a 50% discount to go in and get 5 songs produced. But Dan couldn't even fulfill the obligation. He signed that contract to create 5 songs to be produced, and he couldn't do it. Ryan Upchurch did not sign that contract. Ryan Upchurch did not hold his hand up and swear and attest and something be notarized that he would help him write songs and produce songs. I think Dan thought after that 72 or 96 hours they spent together that Ryan was his new best friend and that Ryan was going to help him with everything because he felt that he had a bromance going on. If a woman had spent 72 to 96 hours with a man, flew back to another state, and in her mind thought that whenever she called this man, he was going to drop everything and come to her rescue. He was going to help her create her life, her money, her financial stability, and put his name and his energy into something that was only going to benefit her. You'd been like, she thinks she spent a few days with this man and now he owes her all that? She's crazy. Y'all would be like, don't date this woman. She's crazy. Watch out for women like this. They're toxic. It's just as toxic and crazy for Dan to have flown back and think that Upchurch was so entangled that he was going to help him write these songs and do this. I think that what Upchurch did was very nice, was very compassionate, was very sweet. It was going to help Dan stick his pitties in the water of the music industry to see if he had what it took before he got himself tangled up into a really big financial conundrum. But make no mistake, if Dan were to try to go to court and say, Your Honor, this man hyped me up and made me feel inspired enough that I could do this, and so I went and signed this contract to do it and spent $4,000, and they found out I couldn't do it, and I want him to pay for that because he inspired me, he made me feel good about myself, and I want him to pay me back for the money that cost me. The judge would be like, Sir, was he with you when you signed the contract? Did he also sign the contract? No. So you entered into the contract yourself? Yes. And I want my money back. Well, why did you sign the contract if you can't do what the contract stated you needed to do? I thought I could, man. I believed in myself on that day. He made me believe myself. He lied to me. He told me I could do this and I can't. Well, sir, shouldn't you know that about yourself? No, when people are making me feel good about myself, it's their fault. And this is a big, tough man that y'all idolize? Because I'm sitting there going, somebody's a little needy. To me, I look at him and I go, really? That's how you treat your friends? Anyone that comes into your life immediately becomes responsible. They have to help you, drop everything and facilitate for you, do for you, give their energy for you. Or they're horrible people that owe you money and should be held accountable for being a friend. People, wake up, open your eyes. Stop giving these huge outs to these crazy people that come up with these crazy schemes because they found somebody that's talented and has money that they want to hold accountable and screw. Look at it as if this had gone to court. The judge would have been like, sir, you're crazy. You signed the contract. It's only your name on that contract to that production team. You're responsible. I'm not going to make him pay for something that you chose to go into for whatever reason you made the choice. You should have been an adult and thought about it and not signed it if you had any reservations. But regardless, if you're stupid enough to sign it, you're going to be held accountable. See, I hadn't watched one of Dan's videos in a long time because they were just all the same. It wasn't about creating a dialogue. It wasn't about giving information. It wasn't about providing information. Good night, Raider. It was just about finding a target and loading upon that target and walking away like you were the victor. Which in political videos is probably about all you can do. You know, it works. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships and what you would deem friendships, it doesn't work. I mean, it's just very rude, mean, twisted. So, and the drama. He had to get dressed up, put his cowboy hat on, walk in, burn that, stomp it. The drama's unnecessary. And when I see all of that, I'm seeing a show. He's creating a show to pull emotions, to manipulate and pull you to his side and have you share in his anger. And I'm like, am I angry? Should I be mad at Ryan because Ryan helped him get a very great opportunity? And said, okay, there, I got you a deal. Go do it. If you want to do it, go do it. And this man said, yeah, I'm going to try it. And dropped money. Am I mad at Ryan? No, Ryan helped him. Ryan inspired him. Ryan was kind. Obviously, he couldn't cut the mustard. That's on him. If you're given an opportunity, at least be thankful for the opportunity. Whether you screw it up or not, at least be thankful for the opportunity. And then realize, like, take that off the list. That's something I can't do. And go and do something productive. But to see everybody with their behaviors and their reactions and wanting to create a little mock court and state that Ryan was guilty and putting kids in danger. I was just sitting there going, there's no wonder the world's falling apart. It's absolutely no wonder. I'm concerned about leaving this world into the next couple of generations' hands because I'm amazed y'all can wipe your asses. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm amazed y'all can wipe your hands. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're so assured that Dan is this high and mighty man that has such a great moral code that you need to support him as opposed to Upchurch, then please go and do a deep dive on Dan and go watch his previous videos where he has, naked women, where he's using women's bodies, exposing them, putting them in several states of undress, using them in several sexual innuendo poses and behaviors to elicit a response and get a certain demographic of his audience to come back again. Please go and watch that and tell me how righteous you think he is. Because if you want to talk about somebody trying to sell sexually explicit material, then I would have to say that I've seen more of that from Dan than from Ryan. Just go watch his content. Go look at the women in some of his early videos. It's horrible. But I sit here and I go, people that access this stuff are surely they're old enough. Surely hopefully parents are doing their jobs at home. And it's not 7-year-olds watching this shit. Hopefully it's people old enough to discern whether they need to be watching that or not. And to understand how these people are being used. But apparently I'm way off target because most of you people that are old enough to vote can't even understand that. So it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I wish that I could get one of my lawyer or judge friends to be brave enough to come on and answer how an investigation or a court case about this would go. Because y'all's minds will be blown. Because everything that judges don't feel sorry. When they see people make stupid mistakes, they say, hey, so you made a stupid mistake. And it's going to cost you something now. They don't say, oh, you were manipulated. No. Because we need people in the world that are smart enough to not be manipulated by other people. So they don't feel sorry for people that were manipulated. If you're manipulated, you're just as guilty as someone else. If you're manipulated to participate, you're just as guilty as everyone else. But then you go out here and you want to, in your mind, convict someone that had absolutely nothing to do with the scenario. And it's like, it's just mind blown. Absolute mind blown. Just boggles mind. And I've been trying to think about where I want this interview with Ryan to go. And bless his heart, he responded to me this morning on YouTube, and he was like, the thought patterns and the way people think these days, and it scares me, but it also intrigues me. And I'm like, it used to intrigue me too until I learned how absolutely stupid people have to be to create these very fictitious thought patterns, these very fictitious judgment patterns. And then I just become so upset with how easily people just kind of leave their mind blank until they allow someone else to hijack it. And they allow someone else to use their mind to write their to write their feelings and emotions in there and their judgment calls. And they just say, okay, I'll swallow that and I will go and repeat it. And I'm like, you don't even have your own perception. You don't even know how the legal system works. You don't. So, and they'll jump on the bandwagon of going online and defaming people and not understand that they're actually doing something more harmful. But they won't listen to anyone. And when I try to tell them, you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated by someone who has learned how to create videos, use their physical stature, use their demeanor, use their words to pull you in, place a seed of doubt, screw with your brain, screw with your emotions, and then set you off to go and wreak havoc. They're using you so that you all go out there and do 99% of the harm, and they just had to do 1% of the energy toward it. And I'm like, you guys are being used. You guys are being used as little pawns, little robots, been set off to create havoc. No, I'm not. I'm really mad about this. Okay. Well, were you mad about other people that have these issues? Other children that have been used in this way? Other parents that have been found guilty about, well, no, I'm not really big on the news, and I don't really follow a lot of this. I just saw this and it really hit me. Well, have you read up on sex offender laws and how they're convicted and what they have to do and what has to be proven for a conviction and what is and is not a criminal level? You know, and no, I don't know any of that. I'm just really mad, and I'm getting on here and I'm just saying whatever I want to say. But I know you're wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay. You have no intelligence. You have no knowledge of the topic, of the subject matter. And I tell you, hey, for over a decade, I was an officer. I was a parole officer. I supervised sex offenders and murderers. I dealt with kids that had addictions due to trauma backgrounds. I counseled them. I did group and individual therapy. I've dealt with this. I've been in courts. I've been in family courts. I've been in criminal courts. I've been in misdemeanor courts. I've been in federal court. And let me tell you that you've got it wrong. And let me tell you how you need to be looking at this and who you need to be holding accountable and how you need to look at things like this so that you don't get caught up in an emotional warfare where you're the soldier doing the footwork. So, if I could beg the young generation to do anything, sit down with someone that's, a couple of decades older than you and listen to their life stories, listen to their career stories, listen to the things that they participated in where they thought they made a difference. You'll learn so much. And if you're adamant that you want to be someone who pushes judgment onto people and does the court of public opinion, then look up criminal court dates for your area and go sit in criminal court dates and learn how the court works. Learn how the law is applied. Learn how an argument of a prosecution team and a defense team, learn how that happens. Learn the protection that's given to both parties throughout the court battle. And understand the process before you go online and start telling people that you know these things to be fact when you don't have one iota of a clue. It's really simple. Do the homework. Put some wrinkles in your brain. So, I was just really let down. Okay, like, I have candidly, since the whole Katie Noel, I have candidly been called the Creek Squad counselor because I came on and I was like, guys, chill. They want you to be mad about this. They want you to create havoc. They want you to upset Ryan's entire world. Stop. Breathe. Think. Look at who's set to gain from this. Stop helping someone gain from this. The best way to be a fan when things like this happen is, and people were like, oh crap, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, no wonder. Yeah, you have your master's in psychology and you're a retired parole officer, retired counselor. No wonder you were able to help us so quickly. Thank you so much. And so people started calling me the Creek Squad counselor. Today, I was disrespected in so many ways by people that did not have not one iota of a clue of what was going on, of how charges in that realm are dealt with, of how investigations in that realm are occur, about how people are supervised while they're on parole or when they come off parole, or how they're still on the radar and how they're still kind of, we still keep an eye on you. Just believe it, we do. I was so disrespected that never again will I attempt to save anyone from getting a defamation charge or posting something on the internet that could come back and smack them. From now on, it can just come back and smack you, because when I tried to step in and bring reason and thought and logic, I was attacked. And I'm nobody. I was attacked to the point where I was like, I'm done. If you all want to state something, write something that could be used against you in a court of law, I'm done. Just go ahead and do it. If you want to be stupid and you're going to berate me, demean me, disrespect me, cuss me so that you can't be stupid, just go be stupid. Just go be stupid. So I just withdrew. People are going, and a lot of people were like, hey, yeah, it's sad, isn't it? And we see it too. We're just keeping our mouths shut too, because they're like hyenas. They're rabid on a carcass right now. We understand. And what I watched was the biggest display of absolute stupidity, of absolute ignorance about the world you live in, the social ramifications of behavior, and having absolutely no knowledge about the justice system, but wanting so greatly to be in control of the power to harm someone. I want no part of it. I will never again step up to stop you from self-harming. Never again. If you want to say something that's going to get you a defamation charge, go for it. You're not going to hear me go, that's not a good idea. It's not going to happen. Because perhaps life just needs to smack you right between the eyes, and you need to have repercussions. So, and I'm just a podunk, stupid little one person. Can you imagine the crap that Ron or someone in Ron's position goes through daily? These people trying to prey upon them, manipulate them, put them in positions where they can have power over them, where they can flex some power and hope to get something in return. Can you imagine what he deals with daily? Sad. No wonder his last answer was, I have to be sketchy on everyone. No wonder, because everyone treats him like crap. And the only reason Creek Squad flip-flops so quickly is because he is accessible. So when you have an issue, rather than take the issue to the person that you know is responsible, but they'll never see you, they won't interact, you'll never have your voice heard or your statement seen. That's not going to benefit me. I really want to have the interaction. So I know that it doesn't need to be laid at Ryan's feet, but I'm going to go lay at Ryan's feet because he's accessible to me, and I know he'll read it, and I know I'm going to get a few dings in. And yeah, it might be, mean of me, but then he'll read my name and he'll know who I am. And I'll become like famous in his brain for 5 seconds. What? Really? That is so toxic. That is so counterproductive. Just to want that 5 minutes of fame, whether it's in positive or negative light, to somebody that you used to 5 seconds ago have a lot of respect for. Really? You can lose that respect in 5 seconds? Or you a fickle fair weather friend. So, society needs to really champion the comeback of integrity, of loyalty, of understanding, of taking 5 minutes to think about something before taking action. They're really not Creek Squad. They're not. They're the fluff. They're the fluff numbers that keep shit going. But it's sad to see that there are so many people in today's society willing to do things like that because it benefits them emotionally at that moment. So, I've seen a lot of really bad behaviors from a lot of people. I'm dealt with murderers, had to walk murder scenes. I've had to pull children out of homes where they've had abuse happen that you could not even imagine. I've seen people do some really horrible things, but the behavior that I see every day on social media tells me that people are capable of far worse than I witnessed before I retired. Because the blatant behavior that they will portray on the internet today is so much worse that I know that what they will do, if they really have the ability to really do something, it's got to be far worse than what I used to see before I retired. Because They have just gotten so much bolder. And it's so sad because this world is never going to get out of the decline if we're breeding people like that. If that mindset is winning, the world's never going to bounce back. Right now, Biden is fixing to go and I'm going to help Canada with their issue in the border blockage. Really? Really, Joe? Really? We can't even get you to deal with our border and our issues, but you're going to go help your neighbor because you don't want this to trickle down and the shit to flow downstream and be on your hands? Really, Joe? You sent 8,500 troops to Ukraine because their borders were under attack. But you won't send anyone to our borders that are under attack. And then we have people in our society that are like, well, it's Russia. They're going to hurt them. Look at the numbers. The numbers of troops that Russia's had on the border of Ukraine for the last 7 years has not really changed. They're just amping up the situation so that they can take action and force an issue. Because that's how Biden makes money. He presses other nations when they're in bad situations. And that's how he makes money. So if he applies pressure and creates a situation, he will make more money. How can you send 8,500 of our troops to the Ukraine and justify sending none to our border? What the crap? Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. YouTube completely shut down Hillbilly Reacts channel, stating that he had displayed nudity and pornography on his channel. The man never, y'all know Hillbilly Reacts, never would he have placed anything like that on his channel. It was a complete and utter ploy to have a reason to take people that are talking about the truth and have just common sense to take them off of this platform. We've got to start absolutely standing up and saying, no, that's not right. We're going to band together and we're going to change the way this is happening. And people are like, well, I don't want to say anything. I'll lose my channel. Well, then you go and find another website, another channel, another platform, another app, and you keep talking. You keep talking, because if you shut your mouth, they've already won. They've already won. I won't be here forever. It's only my accent that keeps the bots from reading what I'm saying. Y'all know that. I won't be here forever. There's a tribunal happening. There's Nuremberg 2.0 happening with international lawyers and virologists and epidemiologists and specialists and attorneys. And you can go to grand/jury.net and listen to all the information, the factual information, the specialists bringing the health information, the legal information, all the infractions, all the laws broken, that these people have facilitated over the last 2 years to keep us in this tizzy of a state, to change the way our society functions. Yeah, I know. I'm amazed I'm still here, to be quite honest. Y'all have heard me talk about crap. I'm amazed I'm still here. But go to grand-jury.net and listen. Listen to the factual evidence being provided through a tribunal court setting. Go listen. Their hopes are they'll provide so much information that the people of the world will force a court to accept the case, because they've tried to file the case and no country will allow it. Because money talks. We don't live in a free world. We haven't lived in a free world ever. I've known that since my Irish ancestors were shipped over here to work the land. We've never lived in a free world. There's always been a cost. We've always been the fodder for the people that had the power. But we're getting to a completely ridiculous level of inappropriateness about how we are being absolutely screwed and stripped of all rights, while the rich just keep wallowing in the mud, happy as a pig in slop. And until we all think that we can talk about it, if you're so scared to just even talk about it, they've already won. We've got to talk about it. We've got to express our displeasure appropriately. Loudly, but appropriately. And we've got to let them know that we're not a minority. We're the majority of people in this world, and we want our society back. It may have just been an illusion of a happy life, but can you give it back? Oh yeah, and then to have politicians in America say, well, communism would work if it was done appropriately. Really? Because the application seems pretty consistent across the board, and it's been tried a few times. It doesn't work because it allows greed, and it allows the people with the power to devalue other human life. That's why it doesn't work. In no way does anything that consists of devaluing human life, in no way can that ever benefit the world. But people apparently think it can. So there's a lot going on that people need to be aware of. But if we cannot even handle a minute display of inappropriateness from a rap mogul that spent 8 years in prison, then how are we going to handle our nation and our freedoms being stolen from us by very suave intellectual politicians and world leaders and world gazillionaires? They've dumbed us down. Y'all fell for it. When you were kids, instead of picking up a book or taking an extra class at school or taking an online class to learn about the history of the world, about sociology and anthropology and the building of these great nations that then fell, why they fell, what happened, what occurred, and why it's being repeated now. Instead of doing that, y'all chose to look at a screen and play videos of people doing the most stupid crap they can think of, which had no educational benefit whatsoever. And you thought you were living in the age of intelligence? Really? I told a woman the other day, she was wondering, she's like, well, this woman just posted a video and said, well, all horse owners' hearts skip a beat when their horses do this. And it's just the horse laying down and sleeping. And then he rolls over to scratch his back. I don't know what she thinks is wrong with the horse. And I'm like, when horses don't normally lay down to sleep, if they do, normally it's because they're sick or very tired or something's wrong with their gut. Horses have a very sensitive gut. If you get the balance of roughage and fiber, if and protein off kilter, then they will go into what is called, I tried to make it really easy. It will upset their bowels, and their bowels could get air in them and then twist, and then it could kill part of their bowel, which could kill them. And normally when you see this behavior, it means their gut is having an issue. Excuse me, but horses fart all the time. They can pass air. I don't know what you're trying to say, but that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Really? Because 5 seconds on DuckDuckGo could have answered that question. But you just spent 3 minutes trying to make me feel stupid because you want to stay stupid. Okay. Okay. And I'm like, retarded. And then this woman was like, a bunch of rodeo people had hobbled their roping horses and put them out to graze. Well, if you hobble your roping horse, they can still jump and move and pick and graze and get around, but they just can't run away and get away. It's normally safer than straight tying somewhere at a rodeo when you don't know if something's, it's just safer. And horses that are taught to hobble are really calm. They're chill. They know, okay, he's doing this, so I kind of stay here, but I can kind of mill around in this little space, hop around and eat. It's great because if you teach your horse to hobble, then they respond to leg pressure. So if they get stuck in a fence or if they get wrapped up in something, they're not going to go completely left-brained and break their leg or rip their leg off and hurt themselves. They're going to go, oh, pressure. I need to stand here until my person shows up. Because they've learned that leg pressure is not scary, it just means stay. And all these people were like, how dare you hobble your horses? That is so, it's just so like caveman of you. And they can't do anything. It's like they're handcuffed and it has to hurt. And I'm like, that is like the most responsible thing a horse owner can do is teach their horse to yield to leg pressure. I mean, yeah, my dad was a blacksmith, so I grew up in horse barns everywhere and in show rings. And I mean, I was just always in it. And then I trained for a while on my own until my health crashed and I had all these surgeries and gained a zip code on my behind. Yay! But teaching a horse to yield to leg pressure and hobble is like one of the best things you can do for your animal. Because 9 times out of 10, if a horse gets hurt, it's because they've gotten tangled up in something and freaked out. So if you can teach your horse that pressure on your legs is not a freak out, rip it off, it's going to kill me, moment, then you're going to save yourself a lot of vet bills in the future and potentially a horse's life. Because if they screw up a leg, 9 times out of 10, you have to put them down. And I couldn't explain this to this person. She just saw what she wanted to see, what she thought was harm. And I'm like, no, the horse is fine. They can actually kind of hop around and eat and play and pilfer, and they just know they can't go far and just kind of stay put. It's really a great way to keep an eye on your horses, keep them close. Couldn't explain it to her. She had no working knowledge of horses. She had no actual hands-on time with horses, but she was convinced that her perspective was the only perspective. And I'm sitting here going, no, nope. And everything, there's always multiple perspectives. That's why I say, look at things, and before you respond, think about it from different perspectives to see, hey, am I going at this the wrong way? You don't. Like, I've met some horses that have made me want to rethink my warm, fuzzy feelings for them at times, too. But I grew up in horse barns. I grew up showing cattle, raising cattle, sheep, horses, goats, broiler house chickens. I grew up on a farm, and my dad was a blacksmith. And so I actually worked with my dad and shod horses with him through most of my teenage years. And trained for most of my teenage years. The girls in the area that showed 4-H, they would pull their horses out of the field at the end of winter and be like, ride him down and get his gait back in and make him perfection, and then I'll go show him and get all the ribbons and reward. And I'm like, fine. But I would make them pay for the time, I would keep them for a month or two and ride them down and get them ready for the show ring again, and then work with them and the horse a few times and then send them off for the show season. And then I'd see the horse the next winter and do it all over again. Because these people were absolutely unable to keep their horses in check and rode down and ready to go into the show ring. And I was just like, why do you even have a horse if you're not spending that much time with them? Just don't. But I did all of that growing up. Yeah, I grew up, we even had big old pigs, hogs. I used to help my grandpa castrate the hogs. And my grandma would want the mountain oysters brought to her before they got cold, because she wanted to clean them and slice them and still put them in the frying pan where they were hot, because she said they fried better that way. I don't know. I never ate any that got cold before they were fried. So apparently, I have a biased opinion because I only ate hers and they were great. You grew up on a farm, you eat lots of things. So, but yeah, I grew up doing stuff that, before I was even in kindergarten, I was planting, topping, and hanging tobacco. The whole process through the whole summer before I was even in kindergarten. So I was a little farmhand before I was ever in school. Pigs are nasty. Are they not mean? they're the most vicious, nasty, horrible creatures. Like, even if they're domestic, even if you raise them, they can still turn like nasty in a heartbeat. And I was always, when I was a little girl, I was nothing but knees and elbows when I was tiny. Imagine that. I was always terrified of the big mama sows when they had litters because they were mean. And I was always scared that I was going to get, my brother would always tell me, I'm going to throw you in the hog lot and that mama sow is going to eat you to protect her babies. My brother was one of those. And so I was like constantly terrified of the hogs. And I had braids that went down to my hiney, and I had such long hair when I was a little girl. And I wore my little overalls and I had my braids. And we were going to go fishing at the pond. And my brother thought it would be funny to tie me to the corner post of the sow pen. Well, obviously the sow saw somebody at the corner post by her trough and thought, oh, they're going to feed me. She comes warbling over with all her babies, and then I don't back away from the fence, and she starts getting mean and striking that corner post. I'm tied to it on the other side by my braids, I might add, screaming at the top of my lungs, but I'm like 5 acres away from the farmhouse. Finally, my dad heard me and came to untie me. I was hooked on nails. My brother had hooked my hair on nails, wrapped it around the post and hooked it on nails. He was laughing the entire time that he was untying my hair from the post. Thought it was hilarious. I was scarred for life. I hated pigs. But now, when I was in my early to mid-20s, my family had a hunting lodge. And we did a lot of hog hunts. We had a lot of wild Russian boar. So we would, and you would have to bring these hogs in, buy them, house them for 30 days so that they could have blood work done and be USDA stamped off on. They had all their injections, and then you can release them onto your land. And if they didn't get harvested within a year, you would have to go find them, use the dogs to bathe them up, flip them on their back, hold them, give them the next year's inoculation so that they stayed, current on their USDA shots, and show proof verification so that all your hogs were inoculated and up to date. So we would have hogs that would live to be 400 or 500 pounds that we'd have to take our dogs out to catch. And so my brother would take a catch dog and get on the hog's head and stand and like put his knee on the hog's shoulder and keep the dog on the hog's head. He would be on the hog's shoulder, and I would jump on the back end, flip it, put my foot up under the jawline, hold back, find a soft part of flesh, and jab the shot in. And then we would have to, raise our arms, turn it loose, and run up a tree real quick somewhere. So I grew up doing stuff like that, and hog hunting, and guiding hog hunts. So I grew up quite the rough and tumble young little tomboy, but it was fun. They sent me out one day to, one of the hunters had gone on the far side of the property and harvested a big boar. They had taken pictures with it and everything. He said, oh, I killed it with one shot. And I was like, okay, cool. He was bragging on himself. He was like from Connecticut. And he's like, yeah, it's out in the woods. I put my orange hat on it so you could see it from afar. And I would drive out the big Yamaha four-wheeler with the trailer, and I would winch the carcass up on the trailer and take the carcass back, and we would start processing it because most of the hunters would want to take their meat home and then have their head mounted. So I would start taking it apart. So I was going out to go after this big, like 450-pound boar that this guy had gotten. And it was a nice one. They had, he had shot it. They had taken pictures, propped its mouth open with a stick, taken pictures of it, and then laid his orange hat on it so I could see it. When I was zooming down the road, I could see it off in the woods, and I wouldn't spend 10 years trying to find it. And so I was on the big Yamaha Big Bear and going down, and I stop, and I'm trying to see how I can get up so it's a straight winch pull to my trailer so I don't have to deal with this thing for very long. And I get my four-wheeler kind of propped up and parked, and I go to kick the hog over because it's on its belly with its mouth propped open with a hat so I can see it. And I go to kick it over so I can start affixing a line to its back end to pull it on. That thing come to life. He had shot it, yeah, but they've got an open cavity like behind their ear that goes clean through their head. There's nothing. Their brain's not big enough to be hit. It's just an open cavity. If you've ever caped one out and took it off and then dealt with the skull, there's a big cavity. It's just open, just a wind tunnel, whoo, right there. And he had shot there, and he had done a headshot, which he thought would have killed it, but it had gone completely in that open cavity. It had just knocked it out. And it had just been laying there snoozing while they had popped its mouth open and taken pictures. Yeah, it looked at him at 4 o'clock. I would have thought it too. So when I went to kick it over to get it to roll over on its side, because it's like 400 plus pounds, so I can start fixing a rope to it to pull it, it come to life. And the hat stayed on it for about 4 or 5 seconds. And I was like, and I was doing laps around the Yamaha because he was after me. And I'm jumping up on this Yamaha. I don't have a pistol. I was the recon for the carcasses, so I didn't take guns out with me because we wanted to limit the amount of weapons in the woods just for the hunter and the guide, so we didn't have weapons all over the woods for safety purposes. So all I had was a radio. So I'm on this Yamaha Big Bear. I can't get to a tree, and most of them are too small to go up anyway. And he's trying to hook me. And he's jumping up and trying to hook me and running around the four-wheeler and jumping up trying to hook me. And I'm standing on this Yamaha Big Bear doing this little jig to try to keep my feet and legs away from this hog's big old touches, you know. And I'm on the radio going, bring me a dog or something. This thing's going to kill me. So my brother shows up and he stops. This is when cell phones were just starting to have good video cameras on them. He stopped. Had to have a moment to laugh and video this. Well, I'm about to die. I'm literally running out of breath. I've been doing this for 10, 15 minutes now, and I'm over it. Get this hog off of me. He takes time to stop. He's got his dogs on leash, and the dog's like, turn us loose, turn us loose, turn us loose. And he's taking video, dying laughing, and I'm like, turn the freaking dogs loose. So he finally turns the dogs loose. And I had an old black-mouthed cur named Drum, and he had such a pretty mouth on him. When they were running, scent trailing, he'd go, ooh, ooh. And when they struck, and he had sight and they were fixing the bait, he'd go, ooh, sound like a Uzi. And so I'd have these people from New York and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and I'd be like, no, he's not struck yet. He's just scenting. He's just following. And they're like, how can you tell? And I'm like, because he's, ooh, smooth bark. And I said, you'll be able to tell the difference when he strikes. And then, I said, he's on one. He sees it. They're fixing the bay. Let's move. And he's like, how can you tell? And I'm like, I know my dog. And so I turned my dog loose. And my dog was like, are you okay? And he's like, he comes up to me. And he's like after the pig. But he's looking at me like, are you okay? And I'm like, get it. And so they get the hog off of me. And they get him bayed up in a like an old waller, where he couldn't get over the edge of the waller, so the dogs had him bayed. And I walked up to my brother, and he had a 45-70 pistol. And I should have had ear protection, and I probably should have waited for a better gun, but I was so goddamn mad at that goddamn pig. I took that 45-70, and I hung onto that little mini cannon, and I blowed that hog to smithereens, because he had tried to kill me for legit 25 minutes. And I was over it. And he finally dropped, and I looked to my brother, and I said, make sure they kill him next time, please. And I could not hear for 3 days, because if you ever shot a 45-70, especially a revolver 45-70, you just, I couldn't hear for 3 days. But I got the carcass in, and the hunter was like, is that mine? I don't think I shot it there. And I was like, you didn't. I had to finish it off because it was still alive, and it came to life and attacked me. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's okay. So I've been out with hunters and had a big old boar turn around, cock that head, stick that tail up, shake that head, pop its jaws, and you know, strut and throw some dirt. And I'm like, oh, we're fixing to get charged. You need to take your shot. You've got a shot. You've had a shot for 25 seconds. Take your shot. And they're like, what do? I'm like, take your shot. We went and lined your gun up this morning. You practiced with it. You're competent. Take your shot. Where did I shoot it at? We did at the target. You know where to shoot it at. You've got a broadside shot. Take the shot, and then it starts running at us. What do? Headshots do wonders in a pinch. Headshots do wonders. He dropped his rifle and climbed up a tree. I had to salvage the rifle and then get my butt up a tree. And I actually spun around. I jumped up and was springing around the tree. The hog jumped up. I actually put my foot on its nose and pushed off to spin around the tree again and grab onto another one. And it took off running after that, and I got down on the ground, and I looked at that man. I was like, you can get down now, because we have to go after that hog now. I was like, we're going to have to walk 2 more miles now. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. And I was like, you froze. You're scared. It's okay. But you're going to have to do better next time, because I don't like swinging from trees. So, but I had a, I'm from Appalachia. You grow up in a different world. My son was 6 years old. He did one of the last legal knife hunts in Tennessee. We had a little 60-pound sow that had lived for 2 years at the hunting lodge. She was heck on a fence. She tore fences apart like you would. I hated that little thing. And so finally, it came time of the year to inoculate them. And I was like, listen, since we have to catch her, let me just buy this hog. Let's let my son do a hunt. He's starting to be really competent with his gun and his bow. I want to train him to be a responsible hunter. I'm going to pay for this and get this little sow's property because she was horrible. She was pretty, but she was horrible. And so I researched it, and I talked to my husband, and I was like, I really want him to do a knife hunt. So we worked with him, and we got bags of grain so that he could practice stabbing bags of grain. And people are like, why would you do that to your kid? Why would you make them go up and hands-on kill something? I didn't want to put my kid, the first time he was hunting, in a tree stand with a high-powered rifle where he felt like he was in a video game and not understand what he was doing to the animal. I wanted his first hunting experience to be up close and personal, and to know that he was taking that animal's life, and that if he was going to do this, he needed to be the most humane hunter possible, and he needed to understand what he was doing, and he owed that animal a good death. And then, if you can handle that, and you can deal with it up close, then you'll become a really responsible hunter as you grow, because you know what you're doing. And, of course, we raised the kids with our catch dogs. We had pits for catch dogs. So we raised all our catch dogs from puppies, so the pits were raised with our kids, so we weren't scared that the catch dogs were going to get excited and latch onto a kid or anything. So I picked my catch dogs, I picked my bay dogs, I picked the couple of guides that we had that wanted to go and help my son do this. And we had a big day. Of course, he had gone on hog hunts for probably a year or two at that point. And when it got nasty, we would stick him up in a tree. We have video of my son up in a tree going, let me down, I can't see a darn thing, what's happening? He wanted to be in the middle of everything all the time. And now my son is an arborist, so he climbs trees and takes them apart. And he's like, Mom, that's what got me into tree climbing. And I was like, oh, probably, because I would stick him up the trees. But he's only ever shot one animal twice, and that was a buck that charged him. And it took 2 shots to get it down because it was charging him. Everything else he's killed with 1 shot. He's great with archery as well. Matter of fact, during his teenage years when he was at home with us, after we filled our freezer, he would still have room to, he would still have a few more deer he could harvest. So he would harvest them and go donate them to the people that processed. And what senior families that could not hunt anymore but wanted venison, they would go and put their name on a list and be like, if someone donates a deer, we'll pay for it to be processed. And so the processor would take the donated deer, and these senior families would get deer meat, even if they couldn't hunt. And it was so funny, because on the list they would be like, in parentheses, see if you can get that Waters boy one of his, because he only ever shot things once, so they weren't finding the lead all over, all on their meat. And so he fed tons of families in our area for 6 or 7 years when he was hunting. And now that he's gotten older and he doesn't hunt as much, everybody's like, well, who's going to get my deer for me now? So thankfully, we live in a very rural area, so there were kids to, take up the cause and do it. So don't tell anybody you did that, because it's illegal to shoot those. But yeah, they're pains in the butt if you have a fowl at home. I don't have any chickens at home because we still work a couple of chicken houses and are on the security roster at some chicken houses that are really close. If the alarm goes off, we're the first people to respond. And if you enter into a broiler house, you're not technically supposed to have fowl on your property, so we don't keep chickens because we are still in and out of broiler houses. But when we kept chickens, I would have to actually buy the nets to go on the top, because those big old birds were a pain in the butt. And my husband is still a fur trapper, so like when he brings in beaver and coyote and bobcat and he skins them, and he'll lay the carcass out because he'll use the meat to bait up other stuff, and then we'll dispose of the carcasses. We normally like try to keep a lot of the, like the skull, we'll keep the skull and turn it into something, and we try to use everything we can. But we'll throw out the carcass, and it'll stay right there while he's finishing up until he hauls it off. Maybe a day at the most. And we'll go up, open the window in the backyard, and there'll either be a huge hawk or a huge eagle or two eating. And I have seen an eagle pack off a 28-pound beaver carcass, and I'm like, wow. So it's like, that's amazing. So yeah, we've got some big old birds of prey around here. It's really interesting to watch them. He may drop another video. I'm hoping that he will watch and understand what he did that just opened him up to understand that what he did for all the wrong reasons. I'm hoping he will pay attention and be like, oh, I didn't realize, yeah, I totally did that. And they can see right through me. So I'm hoping he will understand that and be like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Because he was so consumed with hate when he made that video that he was not thinking about the ways in which he was also responsible for what had occurred. So yeah, I hope he doesn't drop another video. I can only handle so much stupid in a week, just and I've been doing pretty good this week, and I really want to go out tomorrow to go with my husband to check the trap line and the snares, and so I don't want to have to tomorrow. I just really don't. So yeah, if I'm talking, when I'm saying if he'll drop another video, I'm hoping that Heavy Duty Country does not drop another video. I'm hoping he realizes what he did, and that he played a bigger role, and it was stupid for him to pawn it off on somebody. But yeah, I'm just like, I really want to have a nice day tomorrow. I was sick for a couple of weeks. We all went through the Rona here. It was a bad cold. Don't let them scare you. And we just had like the last 2 or 3 weeks here have just been like, and since December we've had like 3 deaths in our circle of friends and family. And, yeah, Dan. And it's just been a really craptastic winter. And I just, my husband actually doesn't have to go into work till tomorrow afternoon. And so I was going to like go with him. I can't like walk the entire trap line because, if many of you all don't know, I have a neuromuscular disorder and I'm going crippled. That's why I'm always sitting here when I do these videos. I'm not coordinated enough to walk around and, do gymnastics while I'm filming. But when I have good days and my nerve function has been doing pretty good, I can go to a couple of the snares, but I can't like walk the entire loop. But then I can sit in the vehicle while he finishes up. But I like to go with him, and it makes me still feel like a tomboy because I'm getting super round and domesticated in my old age. Although the other day I had a tomcat come through the yard and try to kill one of my female cats, and my husband came in, and I had the kitchen windows open, the screen out, and had my single shot 22 leaning out the kitchen window trying to pick off the tomcat. And my husband was like, really? And I was like, he's killing my cats. Which he actually did kill one of my little female barn cats. So he has been marked for death. But yeah, I was like perched in my kitchen window waiting. And my husband walked in. He was like, really? And I was like, I'll make your dinner in a minute. I'm on a mission. But I like to go out and remember when I used to be able to do all these things myself. And, so I was a big burly woman and did meat processing and taxidermy for a long time. My husband still does the fur tanning. If you want to see some of the furs, we keep like 6 or 7 things on Etsy at any time. I've got like a bobcat crown. It's got the bobcat face and shoulders. I've got that on a wreath on Etsy. I think we might still have a coyote hide. I've still got like 15 coyote hides to sell. I've got a mink to put on, and I've got a coyote crown head to put on. I've got a beaver hoop to put on, a beaver carcass, a round beaver carcass, beaver hide to put on. But if you go to Etsy, my husband's store is Hillbilly Heart Decor, and he keeps a few things on to sell. He mostly sells the stuff at like fur events and like craft things during the year, but anything that we don't sell, we put on Etsy through the winter and sell it. Yeah, not a lot of people have any knowledge about weapons. Of course, I'm a retired parole officer. I put people in prison for a decade, so I am very adequately armed. Guns are kind of like a passion for me. Um, I used to hunt all the time. I can't really hunt a lot anymore because of my legs and my nerves and my muscles. And I even have a rolly cart here. Some days I rely on a rolly cart because my nerve function is so bad. But when I'm given a good day, I try to go and remember what it's like to be a normal person. Um, but yeah, people don't understand the old ways. They don't, like somebody said, well, I bought a bunch of seeds from Walmart this year, so if the world goes nutty, I can plant those seeds and then use those plants to get seeds from, and I can just keep planting gardens every year. I'm like, no, you can't. Are they heirloom seeds? No, they're just burpee seeds. Well, no, you can't. Because the plants will have seeds on them, and I will harvest the seeds, and then I will plant those seeds the next year. I'm like, you can. They have modified those plants to where the seeds they produce, it might grow a plant, but it will not grow a fruit-bearing, or a bearing plant. What? They're modified. The only seeds that you can plant and then harvest the seed from that plant and then replant are heirloom seeds. Because everything else the government has taken, Monsanto has taken control over, and those seeds are genetically modified to where they will not produce year after year. You can't harvest the seed and go and plant it back. It won't produce. And they're like, what? And I'm like, read. Pay attention. So, my kids growing up, I was in marksmanship training classes when I was in 3rd grade. I was a marksman first class by the time I was in 3rd grade. I was the first ranking marksman in my class for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and we had probably 30 or 40 kids in there, and I was the girl. I've always been a really good shot. If you scroll back on my videos and see where I'm like my poor husband, he got a big Excalibur crossbow. And it had been, I'd never shot a crossbow, but it had been years since I'd done any archery with the compounded recurve, been years. And he was having a hard time sighting it in. And he said, I don't know if I'm pulling or if it's me or if it's the bow. And I was like, let me try. Because I've always been a great shot. I was always the one that bore-sighted rifles in. Just let me do it. Hadn't shot anything that heavy in years. Only my little 9mm pistol do I keep on my hip, when I'm running around. And I went and picked up that huge crossbow, and I was like, I'm going to get one shot because this sucker's heavy, and I'm not having a good body day, so I'm not going to be able to do more than one shot. So I took my time, and he recorded it. I dead centered the bullseye, and I'm walking up to it. He starts walking up to it to see where I shot. He stops halfway up when he sees it, and he just hangs his head. And I'm like, where did I shoot it? Where did I shoot it? And he's like, better than I did. And it was dead center of the center bullseye. It was perfect. Like, it was perfect shot. And he gets the arrow out of the target and starts walking back, and I'm like, do the walk of shame. My husband, bless his heart, he loves me a lot to let me get away with stuff like that. But it's down there on the video somewhere. And there are still hog hunting videos of hog hunts that I was present on YouTube too. I put them in a community post back several days ago. So if you want to go see some of the scraps I got into, and on one of them you can hear me say to the guy, good shot, after he shoots, good shot. But it's all I did with, and then you grow up in Appalachia, you learn to do lots of things. You learn to be very in tune with nature, and you learn to eat out of the woods. Like, I'm craving limb chicken like nothing right now. Like, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm really craving limb chicken. I want some squirrel and dumplings, and he just looked at me and just was like, now you would. I'm like, I know, now I would. So I was like calling all my friends going, anybody put any squirrel up? I want squirrel. And he got really frustrated with me. Yeah, farmers get in trouble for it. Yeah. It's all about control. And they started that crap in India, and India's freaking mad about it. See, I'm right on the Kentucky line, I'm dead smack between Nashville and Knoxville, but up on the Kentucky line. I'm from where Owen C. York is from, so um, probably we probably aren't from very different areas, probably very similar areas. Um, but yeah, I have a strange life, and, and I'm just logical. I'm rational, and then I went to college, and I was a wilderness camp counselor at a boot camp for kids. So we cut our trees, we built our cabins, we cooked over fires. Had a boy throw an axe at me, which is what started all of my leg issues. Had to have several surgeries. Had to kind of learn how to walk and function again. I've still got so much damage in my left leg, but it can't be repaired. It can't be fixed. I'm just basically waiting for knee replacement surgery at this point, which sucks. But then it may not even improve anything because my nerve function is so bad, I still may not be able to walk well. So it's like, do I want to put myself through that? But I worked, after I got injured and had all the surgeries and did all the physical therapy and bounced back, I still worked another decade as a parole officer, and I did cognitive behavioral therapy for the murderers, and I was an ICOTS interstate officer as well. So I did every level of supervision, parole, probation, um, sex offense, and interstate compacts. I just didn't do misdemeanor. I was felony only. Um, I did that for another decade. As soon as I started limping, and they diagnosed me with this disorder that was going to cripple me, Department of Corrections wanted rid of me so quick. I was a liability because I only dealt with the violent offenders. They were like, she's a big liability. I wasn't. I knew how to handle those people. I never was in a bad place. But they wanted rid of me. So I got pushed out of my career. I wanted to end up in the forensic psychology, restructuring, revamping the prison system. But as soon as they pushed me away, nobody wanted to touch me. So I ended up doing counseling. I went back to my roots, went back to counseling. And I did group and independent counseling with kids that were in state's custody because they had trauma. They had drug addiction from trauma backgrounds. So, I've had some pretty hellacious jobs. I still wake up at 2 a.m. and remember autopsy photos from investigative reports I wrote for the court system. I still wake up and remember homes where I supervised people where they had been a death occur, and it's shameful, but you have to remind people that they need to get an enzyme cleanser to clean whatever wall somebody had their head blowed off against. And I would be the person come in and be like, "Do you smell that? You need to get an enzyme cleanser. You need to cleanse those walls with an enzyme cleanser to kill this, honey." And just the things that I would have to say to people, and it was horrible. But you just, you do the jobs you got to do, and I was good at it, and I handled violent people very well, so that's what I did. But I ended the last few years doing counseling, and I primarily stuck with the kids in state's custody that had addiction issues due to trauma backgrounds or sexual abuse. And I also did some independent therapy for people that had like borderline personality issues or bipolar schizoaffective disorder, and handled some of the people that were more of a criminogenic mental health issue. We knew that their mental health was also going to be a criminal component soon, so I would take them because I could work really well with the probation parole department and the mental health. So I was able to help a lot of people, but now that I live an hour and a half away from anywhere that I could work, anywhere that I could use my degree, I can't do a 3-hour round trip drive anymore on top of a work day. I can barely stand for an hour a day. And as soon as they change the law, because right now I don't have my license, I cast the widest net for forensic psychology. And I wish now that I'd done it differently, but I didn't know I was going to end up crippled. But I can work under any licensed person and counsel in a physical location. They haven't changed the online rules yet. As soon as they change the online rules to where it's the same as the physical location, I'll go back to counseling. But right now you have to be licensed to work online and do counseling online. You have to be independently licensed. But if they ever change it, which I believe they will, to where you work under a licensed official that signs off on all your treatment plans and everything, then I'll go back to counseling. I won't be able to do like full time, but I will want to go back to it because that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy helping people. But I ain't gonna stick my foot in anything Creek Squad's doing ever again. If I see you on the path to hell and you are just absolutely demanding to be on the path to hell, I will leave you on the path to hell. Because I'm not going to be treated the way I was treated today ever again. No, I'm not getting paid for this crap. So, you know, my good nature only stretches so far. So I'm not going to be put in that bind again. I already did those videos to him, and you know, I kind of pulled away from his videos for a while because he was just so aggressive and he only handled people one way, and I didn't like that. He was not creating a dialogue or communicating. He was not bettering anything. He was just lining them up and knocking them down, and I was like, you know, there's a place for that, but I would rather see communication and growth. So I kind of pulled away from him. But when I saw that video, now granted, I'm a manly woman, and I'm not much of an emotional person, and I'm not, you know, when I saw him, I was like, drama, drama, drama. He had to put his hat on and his sunglasses and his cowboy attire. He had to armor up and he had to walk and stomp and burn. And I was just like, oh, he's trying to tackle ever since you got to let you know, jazz hands, I'm mad. And I just found that absolutely hilarious. Because if I'm mad, I'm going to go, I'm mad. You have irritated me. You have angered me to the point of no return, and now we're going to have an issue. But I'm certainly not going to go get dressed up and do a whole big dominance display. It's just a waste of time. People that are really mad don't waste their energy on stuff like that. And he was just trying to create an emotional response from viewers so that he could manipulate them emotionally. And he did it. He did it well. Because people went absolutely batshit crazy after that and had absolutely no thought process. And somehow, intelligence that he had hung on to until it benefited him to release it, people were like, Upchurch knew about that and he let those kids be in harm's way. Well, if that's your logic, then Dan knew about it and held on to it and left those kids in harm's way. Now, I know that all of that thinking is flawed because none of that happened. But if you're going to go with flawed logic, let's just go with it. It's all flawed. He was flawed. You were flawed. You know, all it was a very big display of me bigger Tarzan, me scare you. You know, and if Dan were talking to me, he'd be like, well, what do you think I need to do? I think you need to go buy some Preparation H. Because obviously you think you get up every morning and shit out the sun. That's got to hurt. I don't know why you thought you needed to come out and handle this that way. Because if Upchurch didn't want to speak to you, then he didn't want to speak to you. That doesn't mean you take it to an audience of hundreds of thousands. It means you made a bad personal decision. You ruined a personal relationship. It's not going to work out. You need to process that. But his first idea was get dressed up, pull me some swagger, use some fire and dramatic stomping, and show my body real good and all muscles, and use my voice. And I'll set these stupid people mentally ablaze, and they'll just release them to cause chaos. And that's what he did. He knew that's what he was doing. He's not made those videos and learned his audience and learned how to control them for nothing. It's going to benefit him somehow, and this was how it's going to benefit him. And I was just like, really? Really? You had someone inspire you. You got to spend a whole entire weekend with Upchurch. He gave you YouTube and music tips. And then you said you really wanted to do this, so he got you a 50% discount on production. Just be happy about it. I hear my husband. So it's time for me to shut up. Can you get in? I'm live. I'll be down in a minute. So, I've made my quick oats. Ooh, they're already packing. So that'll feed both of us in the morning. But I've done my due for the night. But I certainly hope I don't see another video because I don't have the emotional desire to wade through the minutia. Like, if I have to respond again and clarify something, y'all are going to see me get really short and really irritated. Because I'm like, you people need to freaking figure this out. So, that's it. Yeah, there's so much going wrong in our world. Why do we need to focus on this crap that does not matter? We should be working on making sure that we have friends and support systems and people that we can count on when the crap hits the fan. But apparently, he doesn't think the crap's going to hit his fan and that he can take care of himself completely, all alone. But go back and watch his older videos when he was younger. And, like, literally, there's, like, half-naked women in them all the time. And I'm like, really? 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 And so it's just like, you know, if you want to talk about being distasteful and doing distasteful things, then he's guilty of them too. So, yes, everybody have a good evening. If I am actually able to ride around with the hubby tomorrow, I will take video and do a video. Maybe the weather's moving in, maybe things will move tonight. There ain't been nothing moving the last little bit. They've been hiding. But we're getting to the end of the season. So, we normally will have one big rush of movement and then boom, we're done. So, if I get out in the morning with him, I will charge up my phone and take some video and drop a video for y'all to see what he does when he goes out and checks his snare lines and trap lines. I'm just a pampered wife that gets towed along. I don't have to do any hard work anymore. Because I'll fall and get stuck. Not be able to get up because my legs don't work. Yeah, I know. I'm not looking forward to the midterms and all this change in power. And what's up with freaking Nancy Pelosi going to be the crypt keeper and try to stay in office as long as she can? That woman needs to give it up and go home and eat her ice cream with her grandkids and leave us alone.
It's my next marriage.
Oh, what'd you say?
That's my next marriage.
Oh, my husband's over there making plans for his next marriage.
Nancy Pelosi, she's got plenty of money.
Oh, he's going to marry Nancy Pelosi because she has money. You're brave. Or stupid. Which one is it?
I'm young and she ain't gonna live forever.
He said he's young and she ain't gonna live forever. That's his plan. You gonna stress her out so she exits early? Oh Lord, my husband doesn't like to be on camera, but he's quite the ham.
I'll be on camera tomorrow.
He said he'll be on camera tomorrow for you. Nancy's just I wonder, I worry about her. Like, she was up there drinking something at the podium the other day, couldn't get her mask back on. One eyebrow was up here and one was down here, and her smile was crooked, and I was like, is she having a stroke? But I can't tell because it's just her face. Now, I will have to say, it's this one. I got pepper sprayed. I got caught in a little riot in the jail and got peppered. They emptied 3 cans of pepper spray on this man. I got in the middle of it. We were stuck in a small room during lockdown for 25 minutes. I ended up with chemical pneumonia and ended up in the freaking hospital. The inmate ended up naked, running around and screaming because he had 3 cans emptied on him. They put me in the hospital. I was swelled, mucus pouring out of, it was bad. Somebody comes at me with pepper spray can, they better be ready to die because I ain't gonna let that happen again. But they give me a washcloth to cool down my eyes, but somewhere in my sleep that night at the hospital, I had rubbed my eye in my sleep and had rubbed half my eyebrow off. Well, I woke up and I was like, my eyes are burning. I said, where's my washcloth, to my nurse? She goes, honey, I took that away from you 2 hours ago. You rubbed half your eyebrow off. So I went back to work and I had a big gap in this eyebrow, which I told everybody it was my gang-affiliated eyebrow. And it still doesn't grow right. Still got a big spot here. So I look at Nancy with her funky eyebrows, and I'm like, how many facelifts have you had? Because mine have been through some trauma, but they're still hanging on. But what did she do to... It's bad. She reminds me of the Crypt Keeper. And Jerry Nadler reminds me of the Penguin. I look at our politicians, and I'm just like, this is a joke. Like, this should be like in the comics every day. This is a joke. And I've got, I've had a lot of people in my family have Alzheimer's dementia issues. And now my granny is 90 and we're dealing with her. She's on hospice. And we knew when it was starting because we had seen two other family members go through it. We saw the spatial awareness, the footing, not knowing where their head was when they're getting into vehicles, grasping things and missing. Spatial awareness is one of the first things to go. And then speech starts to go. And so as soon as I started hearing Biden start to speak and saw him walk off the helicopters and the planes and up to the podiums, I was like, he's in Alzheimer pre-dementia state. I'm concerned, and I know he is because this is the third family member I've dealt with. And so me and my mom and dad watch the TV and we see Biden and we're like, whoever's doing this to him should have elder abuse charges because the man doesn't know what's going on. I mean, he's doing really good to get through what he's getting through, but you can tell on the bad days, that he's really struggling. And as much as I dislike the man and his policies, I feel bad that someone is putting him in that position. Adult devices for elder abuse. So, well, I think if we ever know the truth about this administration, a lot of us will be blindsided by how corrupt it is and how harmful it was to a lot of people. Because as much as I dislike Hunter Biden and I think he's a piece of crap, I can also look at him and say the drug use, the behaviors, using sex as a coping mechanism, being highly inappropriate, all of that is him struggling to handle what he's been through and what he's been forced to do, and that's how he's coping, very unhealthily and very inappropriately. But I can see that he's been put in bad places and is struggling. And so as much as I dislike him and I don't care for the man, and he's, in my opinion, needs to be in a prison cell somewhere, I still feel sorry because I know he's been through something bad. So I try to have a well-rounded approach to things, to look at things. But I'm telling you what, this morning I was pissed 10 ways to Sunday, buddy. I was mad. And it was just because there was no logic. And these people were just so quick to turn. They were just white on rice. They were chicken on a June bug. When they got the ability to be mad about something, they jumped for it. They didn't care what it was about. They just wanted the ability to be mean and to subjugate someone beneath them, bash them. And I was just like, And now that I looked up Boozy's history and what he's been through, I'm like, there's no way that's not been investigated. The man is literally on the cops' radar all the time. He just got off parole in 2018, and he's already had new charges and new issues and been investigated. So if there was any truth to what he had said, it would have been thrown in and investigated as well. I'm very comfortable in stating nothing he said had any merit to it, because it would have been investigated already. Apparently Tom McDonald's doing some kind of social statement or something. I don't know. I may go check that out. Somebody just posted on another video of mine. Apparently Tom McDonald's posted something or written something or come forward and stated something. I don't know. But I just thought it was funny that not only did he have beef with Ron, but he had to bring in the other two names. So the three people he named were actually at the top of their game right now, getting the most dings, searches, and the most stuff written about them. So he had to get those names in there to link up. And this was just calculated stupidity and arrogance and hatefulness on Dan's part. So, but I think Upchurch handled it well, because once he realized that this was not going to be resolved, he just kind of went, done. And thank you, because the boy used to not be able to do that. It used to frustrate me. So I'm glad that he's able to do that now. Yeah, the entire Biden family, I'd say that they've all been put in very horrible positions to accrue the financial status that they have, and I'm sure some of it's been very detrimental to their mental and physical and emotional well-being. Yeah, well, and it's the same people that are yelling racist at Tom and Adam are the same people that yell that Upchurch responsible for Boozy's kids. and supporting BLM, and it's just like logic. It's just frustrating. But if we want to live in a smarter world, we have to raise our expectations and start creating smarter children. And parents, the last couple generations, have failed the world. My kids are like little old souls. They're like 23, 24, going on 65. And my kids, when my daughter went to college and she went to a big campus and a big school where she got accepted to, she came home after being there for a couple months going, these kids are stupid. And I was like, yeah, they all didn't get raised like you. And my son, who is very much what I call an old soul, he does chainsaw carving and is an arborist, tree surgeon, and welds and does all these things. I get so many compliments when the older generations meet him, and then I'll get messages or I'll get phone calls and they'll be like, I met your son. He is such a sweet young man, so nice. It was yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. And he was just so sweet, so kind, and shook our hands and engaged with us and talked with us and could hold a conversation and could talk about things we enjoy talking about. And they're like, we were just so happy to see a young man raised in that manner. And I was like, thank you, I tried. So, and I like to irritate him, I like to pick on him, and we'll send each other stupid TikToks. But every once in a while he'll send me something and he'll go, oh my God, are people my age really this stupid? And I'm like, yes, they are. So, yeah, the daughter's diary, yeah, a lot, says a lot, which probably we all had probably guessed would be in there, but it's still sad to see it. The family's screwed up in so many ways. It would take me 6 months to assess them, but nobody wants to focus on that. They just want to focus on how they're, what benefit can they be to whoever voted for them. Well, they can't be any benefit to you if they can't function, and they can't function. Oh, you're not obligated to stay here. I'm fixing to leave too, Daniel. I'm glad you popped in. But, so look for possibly a trap line video tomorrow. And hopefully nobody does anything stupid, because I'm getting, short on politeness. And it's not going to be good if somebody does something I have to call out. Because I'm getting real disgusted real quick. I'd really like to go back to my bright, positive, happy place where somebody did something appropriate that I could brag about. So somebody do something appropriate. So, okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to put my quick oats up for the morning, and I'm going to go to bed because I'm tired. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate you. I give you too much credit. Y'all might give me way too much credit too. Thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate the conversation and feedback. I'll see you tomorrow.